So here's an interesting new development. In light of the recent Mass Effect Andromeda facial animation controversy, or whatever you want to call it, this guy, Jonathan Cooper, who once worked at BioWare, he was lead animator for Mass Effect 1 and 2, and now works at Naughty Dog, having worked in games like Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. This guy has come out on Twitter to talk a bit about what might have gone wrong, and he offers some pretty interesting insight that I think is worth sharing with you guys. He tweeted a bunch of tweets recently, a couple days ago, and I think they're worth a read. So let's go ahead and check them out. So here we go. The tweets begin with, "Folks have been asking, so here are my thoughts on Mass Effect Andromeda's animation. Hopefully people will better understand the process. First though, going after individual team members is not only despicable, but the culprits and choice of target revealed their true nature." That I agree with. I understand that some of you might be upset about the final product, but going out of your way to attack individual developers and attacking people just in general is very immature and frankly helps absolutely no one. I'm all for criticizing games, criticizing the final products, criticizing certain practices, but to attack individual people, especially those who may not necessarily have been the core source of the failure of a certain product, that's just like, come on, let's grow up. Jonathan Cooper continues by saying, "Just as we credit a team, not an individual, for a game's success, we should never single out one person for a team's failures." Preach, brother. Preach. That said, animating an RPG is a really, really big undertaking, completely different from a game like Uncharted, so comparisons are unfair. Every encounter in Uncharted is unique and highly controlled because we create highly authored, wide, linear stories with bespoke animations. Conversely, RPGs offer a magnitude more volume of content and, importantly, player story choice. It's simply a quantity versus quality trade-off. In Mass Effect 1, we had over 8 hours of facial performance. In Horizon Zero Dawn, they had around 15. Player expectations have only grown. As such, designers, not animators, sequence pre-created animations together, like DJs with samples and tracks. Here is the Frostbite cinematic conversation tool circa Dragon Age Inquisition. I don't know what any of this jazz is, but some of you animators might understand. Jonathan Cooper then delves a bit into Witcher 3. He says, "Here's the cinematic conversation tool for The Witcher 3. Both tools make it fast to assemble from a pool of animations. Because time denotes not every scene is equally possible, dialogues are separated into tiered quality levels based on importance or likelihood. The lowest quality scenes may not even be touched by hand. To cover this, an algorithm is used to generate a baseline quality sequence. Mass Effects 1 through 3 populated default body talking movement, lip sync, and head movement based on the dialogue text. The Witcher 3 added to this with randomly selected body gestures that could be regenerated to get better results. Andromeda seems to have lowered the quality of its base algorithm, resulting in the "my face is tired" meme featuring nothing but lip sync.
"Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything."
Just for the record, the "my face is tired" meme doesn't just stem from the fact that it's so perfect with how the NPC's face looks just completely dead. It's also the fact that the line itself, "my face is tired," is so stupid. Whoever says, "my face is tired" in the middle of a sentence, whatever, anyway, moving on. This presumably was because they planned to hit every line by hand, but a 5-year dev cycle shows they underestimated this task. All of this is exacerbated by us living in an era of share buttons and YouTube, getting the lowest quality out of the widest audience. Were I to design a conversation system now, I'd push for a workflow based on fast and accessible face and body capture rather than algorithms. While it hasn't 100% proved this method, Horizon Zero Dawn's better scenes succeed due to a use of facial mocap. The one positive thing to come out of all this is that AAA story-heavy games can skimp on the animation quality with a systematic approach alone. The audience has grown more discerning, which makes our job more difficult, but furthers animation quality and animators as a requirement. And that's pretty much the end of his string of tweets. Now, I totally get where this man is coming from. A game like Uncharted, very linear, very cinematic. Facial animations are vastly important and vastly controlled, and they can afford that because there aren't a billion NPCs. I mean, in a game like Uncharted 4, I suppose there are moments where you see a bunch of like pedestrians walking about, but I bet you that if you take a close look at their facial animation, it wouldn't be as good as Nathan Drake's and all of the principal characters. Mass Effect Andromeda, monumental task, right? Thousands of NPCs. All of them can't be handcrafted because that would just take eons to do. So they had to come up with a more efficient workflow, and in this case, apparently it was some kind of algorithm that would determine a NPC's facial animations based on what dialogue was being spoken, the mood of certain scenes and situations. It was all sort of pre-programmed and automated, if you will. But the reason I find Andromeda's situation to be unexcusable is for a number of reasons. One, Jonathan Cooper talked a bit about how certain characters have higher priorities when it comes to animations versus some of the more random NPCs. So something like, I don't know, the main character and certain principal characters should have pretty good animation. Like, I get that maybe they had to compensate for the fact that Ryder is actually customizable, but Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3 also had a character creation, and their main characters and their facial animations in general still looked better than Mass Effect Andromeda's. And there are also a bunch of important humanoid NPCs who look creepy as fuck because of all the shortcomings that I explained in a previous video, particularly concerning the eyes. We weren't really asking for much, I don't think, but it's just the fact that the quality went down so significantly, especially when compared to the original trilogy, which are years old. In one tweet, Jonathan Cooper says the audience has grown more discerning. But it's like you don't really need to be discerning to be able to tell that Mass Effect Andromeda's facial animations are just downright terrible. I don't think people expected the game to have Uncharted 4, Last of Us, or, Death Stranding level of facial animation. Nobody was expecting that much. I think people understand that in an RPG, because of its scale, certain aspects will be lower quality. Again, it's a matter of quality versus quantity. It's just that with Mass Effect Andromeda, the drop in quality of the facial animations is so readily apparent, especially when you look at the previous trailers of Mass Effect Andromeda and compare them to what we have now as the final product. That's why this has become a thing. That's why Mass Effect Andromeda has become a meme, because nobody expected it to be this bad. We were hoping for at least decent, right? Nothing mind-blowing, just something that doesn't look super creepy. Just something that looks decently human. So to make a long story short, Jonathan Cooper offers some great insight, and it's all stuff that it's important to keep in mind when it comes to a large-scale RPG like Mass Effect Andromeda. The facial animations just won't be on par with something more focused like Uncharted 4. So that makes sense, but at the same time, what Andromeda has shipped as the final product is still inexcusable. It's especially inexcusable when a game like Witcher 3 has such good facial animation, and this game came out in 2015? And the developers of that game faced the same challenges as the team in Mass Effect Andromeda as far as facial animations go. Tons of NPCs, a giant world, and what have you, but they handled it beautifully. The main characters just looked alive, and they added little nuances to really bring them to life. They weren't just stilted and looking at you like this. All of the faces in Witcher 3, for the most part, looked natural. This game is 2 years old, is massive in scale, tons of NPCs, and they nailed it because they spent time with it and they cared about the project. They cared about not launching this game when it wasn't finished. That's the difference between a game like Witcher 3, which they delayed when they had to, versus Andromeda, which they rushed to release. There are games that are equally epic in scale as Mass Effect Andromeda, but have done a far better job at things like facial animations and just animations in general. And the result is something like Witcher 3, where you're just constantly like hooked and immersed in each conversation, and you just cannot stop playing this game because you want to keep learning about all of the principal characters, whether it's Geralt, whether it's Trish, whatever. It really makes a huge difference. The reason The Witcher 3 is heralded as one of the best RPGs of all time isn't just because of its competent combat system, its competent leveling and progression system. It's because on top of that, they add an amazing story with an amazing lore and amazing moments that are enhanced by great facial animations, natural feeling conversations, great writing. All this stuff adds up, and it all comes together. It has to come together in order to offer a cohesive package. It can't just be all over the place like it is in Mass Effect Andromeda. The writing is all over the place. The facial animations is all over the place. And by themselves, they're not that big of a deal. But again, when it all comes together in one package, these problems compound each other, and it creates this domino effect. So while I understand the hardships of developing a game like Mass Effect Andromeda, this game with a $40 million budget, with a big-ass company like EA backing it up, and with the history that the studio has, there is simply no excuse. But yeah, there you go. Jonathan Cooper's very insightful tweets about Mass Effect Andromeda's animations, and my own opinions on why I still think Andromeda has an inexcusable case for itself. What are your thoughts on the matter? Do you think Jonathan Cooper raises some good points? Can you personally excuse certain aspects of Mass Effect Andromeda's facial animations and animations in general? What are your personal thoughts on this entire debacle? Let us know in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!